have with me a special guest, Eisner Award winning comic book artist, Geof Darrow. Well, first of all, I should ask you, like, can you even estimate like how many hours it would take to illustrate a page? Like I do some illustration myself. There's my drawing of a Shaolin Temple right up there.
Yeah, I was wondering, yeah.
But
I don't, it depends. I mean, I've gotten faster over the years, but sometimes like, I don't know, sometimes a couple days to draw a page, depending on the complexity of it. If it's just, smaller drawings, I can do a page in a day. But if it's like a really complicated drawing, well, I don't know if you've seen the first issue of the comic, there's a shot of the city, and that thing took me.
Oh, let me ask, in terms of like modern art, people are, you're doing stuff still pen and ink,
Yeah.
on the table. And I love that. I'm a big fan of that myself. But, I've got a tablet behind me and, people are using.
Never used it.
Really? So,
my daughter does, but when I worked on the last Matrix, I was the only guy drawing on paper. Everybody was on a tablet.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's a crazy thing. I mean, you have these software now where they have perspective rulers. You can import 3D models.
I this is me, and I'm not saying, for me, I feel like I was not the perspective sounds great because I got a ruler and I try to figure it out, and I've gotten where I can eyeball stuff pretty good as well. But like that city shot I had, I had drawn my horizon line and figured out my perspective, but I don't draw a grid or anything. I just kind of, I know the general composition, and I'll start with one building and then build things around it.
It's singular, like I was just talking to some other friends, and like lamenting how like people don't really hire inkers anymore because so much of the workflow is now digital, right?
Yeah, the younger guys like to do it. I know, because I grew up, not that I have, but I know and doing it on paper, it's like another revenue source because you can sell the pages. And I haven't, but I did in my earlier part of my career. And it would be some money that, because they don't pay anywhere near as Hollywood, as well as Hollywood, and I'm not that fast to begin with. So fortunately, I knock on wood, I'd always get a call when I really needed money. It would be something I wanted to do. And I could make it a week. Would it take me, I don't know, a couple months to do? It's amazing what they pay off. And I always felt guilty. I think they're paying me too much.
Well, it's a fascinating thing, but I mean, as an artist, right? Like with that opportunity to make a little money so that you can have cushion to then follow the passion.
That's it, yeah.
But
I never, I know it's so funny because the guys that are out there that do it full time, they all want to draw comics. And then the guys that draw comics, I want to work in movies. Ask me, how can I break into movies? I said, I don't know. I didn't try. They called me, and that's how it. One of the first times I worked for a movie was for Ridley Scott.
The hardest single thing to do as a filmmaker is to choose your subject. What are you going to do? A bit like being a painter. What are you going to paint? In the process between the ages of 40 and forward, I gradually got better. I'm still, I'm very comfortable with actors, and what I've discovered in the process, because I know more about what I'm doing than the average director, because I storyboard everything. And I do it personally. I have to. It's not stick figures. It's real close-up medium board. So I've already boarding in relation to this locations. I've seen other sets I'm planning. So I know exactly organically how a scene's going to move.
He just called me because he'd seen my comics and he wanted me to work on this thing. And it was very flattering. And I mean, he was a wonderful, I always remember him because he explained to me who he was. And I said, oh, Mr. Scott, I know you work. Well, I worked on this, and he told me, it's like, and that's sort of that's his kung fu, is my filmmaking, and the modesty that he had. I mean, I've worked with other people that go, oh, I'm blah blah blah, and I blah 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 blah, and they don't got a millionth of the talent that guy has, and they don't have his humility. He had worked with Moebius, and I had worked with Moebius, if you know who Moebius is.
Yes, most definitely.
je suis un artiste, je fais de la bande dessinée et ma préoccupation majeure, c'est de faire des dessins.
Il est véritablement un chercheur innovateur génial.
I wouldn't even categorize it as comic book artist, but he's just a brilliant artist.
Comme le dessin est un révélateur de l'âme, en tout cas de l'état dans lequel on est, on peut, quel que soit le sujet, quel que soit le motif, quel que soit le thème, on peut voir apparaître quelque chose. Un dessinateur peut passer sa vie à dessiner des pots de yaourt. Si quelqu'un faisait des pots de yaourt, eh ben on oublierait les pots de yaourt, on verrait apparaître sa sensibilité la plus secrète et la plus dérangeante.
I remember one time Moebius told me he was in California and some guys kind of approached him. And he doesn't make any martial arts, but he did this, he went into a pose and made some sound and it scared him off.
That's excellent. That was a gamble, right? But it paid off.
Real gamble.
Right? Because
I always think, what if you happen to do that and you turn the one guy that's like, fourth degree whatever belt and
exactly. He's like,
That would happen to me if I did that. But he got away with it.
Yeah. Well, he was unique in his own right.
Yeah, and so we had similar themes, and it was an animated project that he wanted to do. It never got made. As I kept telling him, he wanted to do this an animated weekly TV show, and he wanted it to be of the level of Akira.
Neo Tokyo is about to explode.
Telling me, you're not going to find people in the U.S. that can do this stuff. You have to go to Japan. A lot of those guys are taken. And to do this they didn't do this thing really fast. He goes, I said, they can't do this on a weekly basis, probably. He goes, that's fine. We'll figure it out. It's so funny, but it never. He was so funny because I remember talking to him about Blade Runner, and he said, if there's one thing that you would have changed in Blade Runner, I was like, what would it be? And I said, he asked me, so I said, well, I'd have had a little more action in it. He goes, exactly. It needed more action. I told the studio I wanted more action. They told me no. He goes, I was going to do this. And he told me this whole scene that, and I go, that doesn't change it. It was like an action scene. It was just a beautiful scene. And working from him, I realized a lot of times, if he can see an image in his head, no matter what the script is, and it's something he wants to do, he'll do that movie just so he can film that one sequence.
Oh yeah, it makes sense too, because so much of his work is just this visual.
Yeah.
It's like a moving painting.
And he can draw. He can really draw.
Oh, that's awesome. That's good to know. I don't know if I've seen any of his.
And so does Tsui Hark. Tsui Hark is very good. I got him. He did a cover for these. Did a variant cover for this SHAOLIN series. It's in the last issue. There's a cover by Tsui Hark. Two of them, the front and on the back. About November, that one will come out.
Oh, that's awesome. That'll be something to
month,
look for.
yeah, he was just so. I asked him, and yeah, because I knew he could send me. He did a comic and he sent it to me.
I remember when I was a kid. I forgot how old I was, but it was like I thought I was about 5 years old. And I went to this theater and I saw a movie directed by director Li Hanxiang. And actually, it's the same story. In Chinese name, it's the same story. I was very scared because I thought it was like to mix a pretty girl with very, like a scary image of ghost. Is something that really scary.
He does a lot of his, he does costumes. He'll draw his costume. He told me he does the costumes and he shows them the actors and says, who do you want to play? You show him the drawing. He does like set pieces. He showed me some of the things things he was working on that beautiful, like tone poems. Because I mean, once again, he was a guy that I was living in Paris, and my wife calls me up and says, "Oh, there's some guy from this comic store." And we call up and he says, "There's some Chinese director that's looking for you." And the other first name that popped in her head, I said, "Was it?" I thought it was pronounced Tsui. Was it Tsui Hark? Yeah, that's it. And, holy Jesus! As I called the store and I go, "Yeah, he would really like to meet with you," and blah blah blah. And we met and we kept in contact.
I was gonna kind of tie it back to other comics, right? I picked this up.
Oh, there you go. That's my friend Jerry Ma. Yeah.
Jerry Ma, right? Yeah, I'm a fan. We've communicated. We have a lot of mutual friends, so that's been fun.
Right.
But I mentioned him because I want to kind of circle back around to Kung Fu and comics. You know, like his thing is the Monkey King. DC Comics is doing like the Monkey Prince these days, right? So
let's see now.
it's written by Jean Luen Yang, who
oh yeah.
Right.
Oh, really?
And so it's basically a superhero version of the Monkey King, but it's the Monkey Prince.
I wish him all luck. I don't think you need to. He is a superhero, you know.
Right. Well, I
read the novels. I was like, oh my God, this is like the first superhero ever.
Exactly. It's, it's DC recognizing there's growing market, right? And then you go to Kickstarter, there's Immortal Studios, which is like a whole comic company taking wuxia stories and turning them into comics.
Well, I like the Hong Kong comics. I mean, they translated some of them into English. I just like to read them because they're so crazy, like Blood Sword, and there's the Storm Riders, which went on forever. And sadly, maybe you know the story, that they finally went out, they stopped printing. In the last episode, they didn't even print. They did an exhibit. You had to go to the exhibit to see the last episode.
Yeah, wow. Well, I end up speaking to a lot of martial artists who also are striving to be comic book artists.
Really?
Yeah. It's there's a lot, I mean, it's not just me, right? Like I left comics in the early 90s to go to California to do the magazine. Where else can you find a good use for sequential art? Like how many of those magazine articles, those step by step, this is how the transition happens. And so many of the principles carry over, don't break the 180-degree line, the flow of the eye, all of that stuff. But then as a result, being the comics guy within the martial arts industry, I keep encountering all of these martial artists who all have ideas of how to depict martial arts in comics, right? And they're, some of them are like, they want to be specific. This is the difference between Hung Gar and Choi Li Foot. How do you draw that in a comic, Yeah,
I have no idea. I mean, I'm going to have him fight this guy in the first one. He fights a lizard, and I'm just making it up. I mean, that's why I loved, the Yin Zhong, Louis Cha, those books that he wrote, the Wuxia ones, the Condor Heroes, Return of the Condor Heroes. God, I love those books. I mean, they haven't translated all of them, unfortunately. And I've read some like fan translations of them, but those things are fascinating to me. They're just, the mythology and the, being taught by a giant condor how to do kung fu at one point. Just, I mean, the ideas in that are way more fantastic than anything you'd see in Star Wars.
Yeah, agreed. And it's
Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, it's true. Agreed. I totally agree. I think it's great to be to see that coming out more, right? So can you swing back? Let's talk a little bit about Shaolin Cowboy and how you pitched that back in the day. And
I didn't. I just said I'm going to do it, and I did it. And at the time, it was Dark Horses printed it. No, I was going to do it with them, and the publisher Mike Richardson said, "You can do whatever you want." I'd always liked Westerns, and I really liked martial arts and samurai and kung fu, and I just kind of, what can I do? And I came up with that name, and I remember I told the story before, but Frank Miller said, "What are you working on?" And I said, "Well, I'm kind of working on this Western. It's going to have martial arts." He goes, "Whatever you do, don't put the word cowboy in the title because nobody will buy it." And so, of course, I listened to him. I thought Shaolin Cowboy just sounded cool.
It does.
Maybe take for granted. I thought everybody knew what Shaolin is.